White Fox by Chen Jiatong. Chapter 1, Secret Language and Legend. Far away at the North Pole, the night was quiet and serene. A blue aurora of light flared to life against the black velvet sky.
Is it recording?
Mm-hmm. Winding through the brilliant stars like a lithe, shimmering curtain. The vast snowfields and hills were waking from their deep slumber, a soft breeze stroking the drifting snow, swirling up the glittering crystals. Beneath the thick snow, there was an underground den. The inside of the den was pitch black, but the distant sounds of voices trickled out nonetheless. "Mama!" a child called. "What is it, darling?" the mother asked, smiling. "I can't sleep." "You napped too long this afternoon, didn't you?" the mother gently teased. "Mama, tell me a story. Can you tell me about Merla again?" "You've heard that one so many times." "I still want to hear it." "Okay, if you want to hear it, Mama will tell you," the mother said lovingly. More than 1,000 years ago, Merla was the great sage of the Arctic foxes. It's said that her entire body was covered in fiery red fur, which is extraordinarily rare for Arctic foxes. They're all white, except for the red ones, right?
Yeah.
The little white fox listening to the story is the hero of our tale, Dyla. That's funny to us because before we started reading this, Gwen said about the title White Fox, they're all white, except for the orange ones. And then there she is introducing Merla, whose entire body was covered in fiery red fur. He was curled up against his mother's chest, tightly wrapping in her big tail, snug as a bug. He listened to his mother's story. The tip of his nose...
Oh, he.
Yes, it's a he. The tip of his nose nudging her chin, feeling like the happiest little fox in the world. Dyla's family den was buried deep beneath the snowfields of the Arctic Circle, soft hay strewn inside, making it feel warm and cozy. When Dyla's older brother, Alcis, turned 1, the age when foxes become adults, he'd left home to join a skulk of Arctic foxes and live an independent life. That was before Dyla was even born. Now that 5-month-old Dyla was the only cub, his parents focused all their love on him. At bedtime, he'd pester his mother to tell him stories, and during the day, he'd beg his father to give him piggyback rides. Young Dyla didn't seem to have a care in the world. Dyla's family had moved 3 times since his birth. They kept moving from one hidden place to another, always avoiding contact with other animals. Strangely, no matter where they ended up, a few white foxes would always track them down. Each time, Papa would send Dyla away and talk to them in private. Growing up like this, Dyla hadn't made a single friend.
Now I can hear it, but I can't hear it.
So they're talking about this little fox's family, Dyla. He's
Dyla?
the little fox.
Oh.
So
that one by the mom?
Yep. So he's like a single child because his older sibling is a moved out adult before he was born. Kind of like what we were talking about today with your friends. And they've moved 3 times and they never talk to other animals. So he hasn't made a single friend. His parents keep him very secluded and safe. Well, we'll find out. At the end of the snowfield, there was a small town called Lapula. The people who lived there were cut off from the rest of the world. In the northern part of town sat a small 2-story house. The red roof blanketed its thick snow, the chimney puffing black smoke toward the sky. The stone path from the front door had been recently cleared, both sides piled high with snow, and led straight to a white pine fence. A black van was parked in the yard, where several hardy pine trees grew. Dyla often wandered near the house, a little closer every day. The morning after his mother's story, he watched as a man drove the van up to the gate as usual, the engine rumbling, the exhaust pipes spitting out smoke. Dyla came over to the fence by the house and sat on the snow, peering through the window as two children bounded down the stairs, the creaking of the wooden steps audible to his keen ears. "Bella, your hat's on inside out," the children's mother cried. She had curly blonde hair, Dyla noticed. "And Peter, if you wear your scarf this way ever again, I promise I won't knit you a new one next winter. Now hurry up or you'll be late for school." Peter giggled and tied the scarf tightly over his mouth. The woman opened the front door, and Peter and Bella bounced outside behind her. Peter had on thick blue gloves, a blue hat, a yellow scarf, and a colorful fluffy coat. Bella carried a backpack and wore a heavy pink coat and tall white hat with a giant pom-pom on the tip. She looked like a snowman. Though Papa had warned Dyla more than once to stay away from humans. A fierce curiosity. He's looking at the humans. The little white fox named Dyla's checking out these kids that are going to school in the morning. He couldn't take his eyes off the house that puffed smoke, the car that made rumbling sounds, the colorful clothing. Humans were so fascinating. "Get in the car, kids," the man said, rolling down the window of the van. The mother went over to the car and opened the door. "Peter, try to pay attention in class. Your teacher has complained to me several times." Sounds like the conversation we just had. "Yes, Mom," Peter said impatiently, trudging over to the car door. "Oh, Peter, hurry. Look, quickly," Bella exclaimed, her fingers pointing at the fence. Peter gazed beyond the yard. "Wow!" Dyla was frightened but thrilled. He stayed perfectly still, his heart beating terribly fast. He was perched on the ground like some sort of magical snow creature, a pair of bright and piercing blue eyes, two small round ears, and a large bushy tail trailing behind. His pure white body nearly blending in with the snow. "It's so beautiful," the woman sighed. "What is it?" The man stuck his head out of the car window, straining to catch a glimpse of Dyla, his entire face turning red from the cold. "Oh, an Arctic fox. You don't see those too often." Bella gave Dyla a friendly wave, and Peter whistled. Dyla cocked his head, curious. "Okay, kids, you're really going to be late now. Get in the car," the woman urged, looking at her watch. "But Mom," Bella said softly, "can't we?" "Perhaps you'll have another chance later," the woman said, smiling. "Maybe our little friend will be back." She picked up Bella and kissed her, then gave Peter a peck on the forehead. Peter seemed like he was about to protest.
What does that mean?
If you're protesting something, you're against it. Like he doesn't want to go to school. He wants to stay and check out this fox. "Bye," Bella called to Dyla in a sweet voice, hopping into the car and waving again. Peter climbed awkwardly in after her. "Say goodbye to Mom," the man said. "Bye, Mom." "See you tonight," replied the woman, wrapping her coat around her body. The car and the roar of its engine faded away. The woman watched as it grew smaller and smaller, then suddenly remembered the small white fox. Turning around, she found there was no sign of him, only a trail of clover-shaped paw prints left behind in the snow. From then on, Dyla was like a bee drawn to a flower. He couldn't help but sneak over to the house and quietly study the family, spying on their happy life, and never telling his parents. Sometimes the children noticed Dyla. Bella always made a fuss and called for her mother to come watch with her, while Peter would tiptoe over to the fence alone and extend a friendly hand. The children even worried that Dyla might freeze when it got especially cold and wanted to dress him in their own hats and scarves. But because of Papa's warning, Dyla never let the children get too close. Dyla thought about the family day and night, longing to be human. He dreamt about how wonderful it would be if he, his father, and his mother could become humans. Live in a house that puffed smoke, ride in a car that made rumbling sounds, and wear colorful clothing. What a rich and varied life. If they were human, he was sure they wouldn't have to move around so much. Humans were the kings of the animals. They were never afraid. One evening, as the sun was setting, the western horizon aglow and casting blood-red light onto the snowfields, streaming white smoke billowed from the chimney of the small house. Dyla sat close to the fence surrounding the garden, fascinated as always by the movements of the humans inside. It wasn't until the family drew the curtains that Dyla realized just how late it was getting. He turned tail and headed home, knowing his parents would be worried. He hurried back to the den, only to discover that his parents were nowhere to be found. They must have gone to catch lemmings. He crouched just inside the mouth of the den, looking out, patiently waiting, his stomach growling with hunger. The dark night unfurled its wings, sparkling stars slowly climbing up the evening sky. Mama and Papa still hadn't come home, and Dyla was growing restless. Today's food must have been hard to find. Just then he heard heavy wheezing and saw a shape approaching through the gloom. Dyla leapt out of the hole in the snow to greet his parents as they returned from the hunt, but the shocking sight that awaited him would haunt him for many nights to come. His mama was struggling to reach the entrance to the den, her stomach streaked with blood. Dyla drew in the deep, cool breath. What was going on? It's a lot like the Cat Warriors book, where we just are learning, we get attached to these characters, but in real life.
I was not attached to the cat.
I know, but just the animal kingdom, they kind of tend to die or get in fights.
Why?
More often because they're animals. Mama, what is it? Where's Papa? Dyla looked at his mother with watery eyes. Your father, she hesitated. What happened to him? Dyla asked, his voice cracking. Avoiding Dyla's gaze, she staggered back into the den and collapsed on the hay, her entire body shaking uncontrollably. Mama, what happened? Dyla couldn't bring himself to think about it, hoping his imagination was far worse than the truth. Outside the den, the sky darkened, and the cold wind began to shriek. Dyla, we came across a human. Human? Dyla's head jerked up at the almost forbidden word. Yes, a hunter, his mother said sadly. A gust of bitterly cold wind blew into the cave. Dyla's back was freezing, his chest suddenly tight. Hunter. The word left a scar on his heart. We were looking for food on the beach. Who would have thought a hunter would be there? His mother choked up and could only speak between rasping breaths. He raised his shotgun at us. We ran off immediately, but your papa, he was shot. I'm hurt too. Is Papa coming back? His eyes welled up with tears. He felt lost. Sobbing, his mother said nothing. Dyla was overcome with despair. His father was dead. Never again would he take him to look for food. Never again would he protect him. Never again would he give him a piggyback ride. The wind outside the den howled even more mournfully. A scattering of snowflakes floated in the air. A blizzard was coming. Dyla, my darling, my time is running out. There's something I must tell you. Whether you succeed is up to you, Mama said, clearly fighting to suppress the pain in her stomach. No, Mama, you'll get better soon. Dyla tried to comfort her. Her weak voice made his heart sink. When you're better, I'll bring you out to rest in the sun. I'm like the snow outside. By the time sunlight arrives, I'll be gone. Mama, don't talk like that. Dyla's tears rushing out, trying not to let them fall. He nudged his mother with the top of his head. Dyla, do you know the difference between humans and animals? Mama asked. He felt suddenly guilty. Humans. That word again. Humans are the masters of this world. They do whatever they please and enjoy all kinds of privileges. An animal, however, must endure a lot, she whispered, her voice trembling. In nature, the weak are the prey of the strong, cruel, and dangerous. We live in a constant state of fear, and humans hold the fates of all of us, like your papa and me, never able to escape. Dyla gave his mother a strange look. He couldn't stop thinking about the family he'd been watching for the past few weeks. They seemed so friendly, so warm. Yet now, he had no choice but to accept the fact that a human had destroyed his happy little family and robbed him of his father, and perhaps his mother too. But there is one thing you should know, His mother's voice turned serious, and her every word carved deep in Dila's heart. Listen, my child. There's a way to change our destiny. Legend has it that the patron saint of the Arctic foxes, Ula, created a secret treasure like no other. It contains an incredible magic that can turn animals into humans. She took a deep, painful breath, watching Dila closely. Tell Mama, would you like to become a human? Suddenly, Dila pushed the human family from his mind. How could he have spent all his time watching them instead of appreciating his own family? No, I don't want anything. I just want you to get better, Mama. I know that's not true. I've seen you, Dila. You've been watching that house on the edge of town. His eyes widened. But, yes, we know. We've known all along. We saw you return to that family day after day. Don't worry. Don't worry, little one. All animals dream of becoming human. She looked at her son affectionately. I know you long for it too, and that's all right. Don't hate all humans because of what happened to us. There are good things. There are both good and evil humans. You need to see that for yourself. Lila nodded, struggling not to cry. There's something hidden beneath the dirt in the deepest part of our den that can lead you to Ula's secret treasure, but you must be careful. Don't let anyone else know the secret, especially other foxes. She struggled to enunciate each word. Guard it with your life. Remember, when you've given up all hope, you can turn to our patron saint Ula for guidance. I'll remember, Dila trailed off, his throat thick with tears. Promise Mama you'll take good care of yourself. Mama will always love you. I'm a bit sleepy and want to rest for a while. Mama, don't sleep, okay? Tell me another story, Dila pleaded. He wasn't ready to let go, not yet. Okay.
Wait, is she gonna die?
She might. Okay, Mama will tell you another story. One I know you've never heard. This one's about two great heroes among us Arctic foxes. The story of Gale and Blizzard. She narrowed her eyes at Dila, as if she was trying hard to focus. She smiled, but her voice was weak when she started to speak again. A few years ago, the patriarch of the white foxes, Nicholas, declared war on the blue foxes in a dispute over territory. Ooh, there's blue ones. The war continued for 2 years. Finally, the key battle was set to take place, and the blue foxes
What do you do to the fan?
had the upper hand.
Why?
The war continued for 2 years. Finally, the key battle was set to take place, and the blue foxes had the upper hand. The white foxes came up with a plan, but it was a dangerous mission. We white foxes came up with a plan, but it was dangerous. When no one else was willing to fight, 2 sworn brothers heroically stepped forward. They used their own lives as bait to distract the blue foxes' forces. They defeated 12 seasoned blue fox fighters, but it was all so that Nicholas could raid the enemy camp, winning the war and saving the entire fox troop. The story of the two spread throughout the Arctic. In awe, the blue foxes renamed them Gale and Blizzard. Her breathing grew lighter and lighter. Her expressions was completely serene.
Mom?
Yeah, the two of them made the enemy tremble with fear, especially Blizzard. He was strong, brave, calm. Mama will always remember his charming smile. Her eyes glistened with tears and fluttered shut. Mama, don't sleep. Look at me. Tell me another story. He gently nosed his mother, his heart filling with grief when she didn't raise her head. I'm begging you, Mama, open your eyes. He pushed her again, tears streaming down his face, but she was gone. Dila felt as if his whole world had suddenly crumbled and everything before him had faded. Mama had left him forever. Never again. Would they play fight? Never again. Would she tell him a story? Never again. Would she wrap him up in her big tail and kiss him? Mama, Dila sat beside his mother and sobbed. What should I do? Over the course of one evening, Dila went from being the happiest little fox in the world to an orphan. His heart was empty. His future seemed empty too. He curled up in his mother's tail, helplessly nestling up against her. He wept until he was completely exhausted, then fell asleep in a daze. "Mama, wake up!" The next morning, Dyla nudged his mother with a small furry paw, but she remained still and cold as ice. He hadn't wanted to believe that she was truly gone. His heart ached, and his eyes were blurry with tears. He spent the morning burying her, sorry that he couldn't lay his father alongside her. Afterward, heart heavy, he dragged his worn-out body back into the den. "There's something hidden beneath the dirt in the deepest part of our den that can lead you to Ulla's secret treasure," his mother had said. Reluctantly, he started to dig, and at last unearthed a parcel. It was tightly wrapped in yellow leather, and there was something hard inside. It was the only thing his mother had left for him. He was curious, but wasn't ready to open it yet. Dyla looked around at the small den he had shared with his parents. Only yesterday, he had felt so safe here, but he didn't feel that way anymore. It no longer felt like home. Besides, his mother had told him to take the package and follow his dream of becoming human. Dyla wiped away his tears, gripped the parcel between his teeth, and flew out of the den like an arrow, never looking back. The blizzard raged. The sky was pitch dark, and a fierce wind swept up the heavy snow and beat the ground. The small, frail white fox dashed through the whistling flurries. Dyla gasped and panted heavily, clutching the small yellow package in his mouth, trying to forget the sorrow of losing his parents. Eventually, he slowed down, shaking the snow from his body. Although he was carrying the parcel, he didn't feel drawn in any particular direction. Was it guiding him to Ulla's secret treasure, as his mother had promised? "Mama." He gazed up at the sky in confusion. It was as if he could make out his mother's loving smile among the cluster of dark clouds. He ran and ran, losing track of time. After a while, he recognized a jagged, icy canyon plunging through the landscape. Dyla's father had brought him here once, but had warned him never to return alone. What did that matter now? Papa was gone. No one was left to care when Dyla went. He walked to the edge of the precipice and looked out over the white canyon. There was no sign of life. Far below, out of sight in the storm, the sea roared and crashed. The snow up here was thick and hard and had been blown into strange shapes by the wind. Heartbroken, Dyla walked along the cliff top, the wind whirling around him and snatching at his fur. The clouds grew heavier as if they'd been coated in dark blue paint. His surroundings became blurred, but then Dyla caught sight of something moving through the snow in front of him. He squinted and slowed down, keeping a watchful eye. A skulk of foxes emerged from the flurry. There must have been a dozen, and they quickly surrounded him, cutting him off from every means of escape. The cliff at his back. A pale blue fox headed the group. He looked like an ice sculpture, nearly translucent. He had thick fur, an air of arrogance, and a deep scar etched across his right eye. "You must be Dyla," the grim-faced fox said. His tone was chillier than the piercing wind. Who are you?" Dyla replied nervously, his voice muffled by the package still dangling from his mouth. "My name is Jens, patriarch of the Arctic foxes," the blue fox rasped, stepping forward. "That parcel must be the moonstone." "Carl, my old friend, it seems that you are correct," he said, a faint smile spreading across his face. "Moonstone? Was that what was in this parcel? How could a stone guide him to Ulla's treasure?" "I told you I was there when Gray gave that old thing to Blizzard," a sly voice replied. A lean white fox emerged from behind Jens. He must be Carl, thought Dyla, confused and scared in equal measure. Carl's limbs were long and slender, his eyes yellow, deep-set, and bloodshot. Dyla shivered. One of Carl's hind legs was dragging, as though he'd been seriously injured. "What do you want?" Dyla asked. Jens slowly approached Dyla, never taking his eyes off him, speaking in a low voice. "Child, you're so young and all alone out here in this wilderness. You have no use for the moonstone, but we need it. Come now, hand it over. In return, I can offer you safety, food, and warmth." Dyla held the little package tightly between his teeth as he surveyed the pack of foxes. Snow swirled around them. Their eyes were hard and cold. He couldn't imagine finding safety with them, despite Jen's coaxing words. Besides, his mother had entrusted this parcel to him before she died, this moonstone, as Jen's called it. No matter what, he wasn't handing it over to anyone else. He suddenly felt braver. A low growl hummed in his throat. He was ready to fight to the death. "No," he said. "You'd better give up and leave me alone. Come now, child, don't be this way. You're frightened." "But there's nothing to fear," Chen said, speaking slowly. "As the patriarch of the foxes, I can promise you that as long as you give us the moonstone, no one will harm you." He and the other foxes drew closer to Dyla, tightening the circle around him. Dyla backed up towards the edge of the cliff, determined not to surrender the moonstone. "At least if I die," he thought, "I'll be with Mama and Papa again." "Let's just take it, Jens," Carl snapped. His red-rimmed eyes stared savagely at Dyla. "My mama left me this parcel. I'll never let you have it," Dyla said, backing up toward the cliff edge. Anger flickered across Jen's face. The blue fox roared, his rage so sudden and so powerful that it took Dyla's breath away. At the same time, the vicious half-circle of foxes tightened further. "You'll die if you fall," Jen said, anger simmering under his calm voice. "I don't believe you'll jump, so before I let Carl have his way," the white fox growled in appreciation, "I'm giving you one last chance. Hand over the stone, or Carl and the rest of my pack will rip you to shreds." There was a malicious glint in the fox's eyes as they bared their teeth and claws, closing in on Dyla. Dyla edged back farther and nearly lost his footing. Clumps of snow fell into the chasm at his feet. He glanced over his shoulder and was overcome with dizziness. It was a bottomless pit. In a split second, a white shape lunged at him with astonishing speed. Dyla didn't have time to think. He clamped down on the leather parcel, squeezed his eyes shut, and leapt off the cliff. Oh! He leapt off the cliff, Gwen. Carl's teeth closed down on a tuft of his neck fur, but it was too late. Dyla fell away from the fox's grip, plummeting into the abyss alongside the snowflakes. The fox's surprised cries gradually disappeared as the cold wind pierced Dyla's fur. Whoa! He just jumped off a cliff.